Tell me what you see when you look at me. Do you see another brother lost in these streets looking for his soul?
Trying to find my soul.
Or do you see another brother searching for lost souls in these streets? A street soldier.
Street soldier.
Here to help you get that chip off your shoulder, warm your colder days and sober your drunken ways, and find a way to help you get over these hurdles placed in our path. And this is not meant to amuse you. This is for all those who have questions but are afraid to ask.
I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. No. When times get hard, you lose your way. Open your mind and hear what I say.
This is a message for the hard and the soft. To those who tune in weekly and to those who keep an eye out for 8 p.m. on Sundays and turn their radios off. The truth hurts. The cloth has been pulled. We're walking around half dead. Use this show as your IV. Alive and Free is a new movement. We've achieved self-destruction. A street soldier promotes self-improvement.
Streets couldn't be no colder, so I gotta be a soldier. It shouldn't be this hard for me. Even when it seems so hopeless, I gotta keep my focus. I'm glad to be alive and free, yeah. Streets couldn't be no colder, so I gotta be a soldier. It shouldn't be this hard for me. Even when it seems so hopeless, I gotta keep my focus. I'm glad to be alive and free, yeah.
Have a discussion on voting with a group of college students, collegians from the BASE program at USF. We got some wonderful young people. We're going to talk about it. And, you know, I kind of think, depending on the year that they are in, this might be their first, some of them, their first time voting. So that's
talking to first time voters. Yeah, it's a
that's going to be first time voting in a national, in an election period. So that's going to be interesting to see what they have to say about that. Okay. Ann's going to play a little clip on voting. And I'm going to invite them in, and we will get started with the conversation right here on Alive and Free Street Soldiers Radio on Zoom. Here we go.
How we increase the power of Black folk until there is 100% voter participation, we're going to continuously elect people who will not share our interests, who will not address our issues.
There are Black people who have died for their voting rights. We have to preserve our right to vote, and we have to make sure that future generations understand the impact of voting.
When you talk about values and you talk about this idea of the community you want to feel a part of, we've seen these songs sung before, and now it's time for action.
How we increase the power.
All right. I'm trying to get folks in, and I'm doing that at the same time. Let me get my other folks. I got to text a couple more folks. Y'all be patient with me. Usually that was short, Ann.
Yeah. But we have some guests coming in, so yeah.
And begin admitting them. Let's see. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me get one more and tell them to come on in. Boy, I feel like I'm a Star Trek person at the, Captain Kirk here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I did it. Okay, so let me just tell you about that before I introduce our guest tonight. That was the trailer to a film titled African Americans and the Vote, The Movement Lives On. The film is based on the National 2020 Black History Month theme, African Americans and the Vote. And it was produced by the San Francisco African American Historical and Cultural Society. And its goal is to significantly increase the number of African Americans and others voting obviously in the upcoming election, federal, state, and at the local level. Now that was the small clip, and there is I think the entire piece is 18 minutes, and we may show some of that on a later show. But that, I hope, gets everybody in the mood for what we're going to talk about tonight. And we're going to talk about voting with the guests that we have in front of us. And I see they're wonderful. I have not met these folks. I only met one of them. Yeah, I only met one of them. He knew who that is. And his name is different. So I don't know which name I should say, but when he come on, he'll tell me. So let me tell you what we have here. We have, and raise your hands, folks. So everybody here is Kaylin Goodwin, right? Hi, Kaylin. Thank you for taking us at the last moment, dear. Thank you. CJ Jones. All right. What's up, CJ? Rawan Abdallah. Is that right? I said that right? Damn. All that money paid off. Spent all that money school. Okay. She Belcher. Right? And Michael Gregory. So Michael, come on, Michael. Get on and tell me which one should I use right now.
Mrs. Stell won't let me use anything else, so.
Use the name that's how I know. Not to use. Baby, you've grown at this point.
Okay.
Well, maybe not.
Hollywood name.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let me see.
The up name.
What do I say? 25 is when you're grown? Right. Okay, so it's Mike L, baby. It's Mike L. That's the one your mother gave you.
Amen.
So thank all of you for joining us tonight. They are all students from the BASE program at USF. BASE stands for Black Achievement, Success, and Engagement Initiative. And it provides by say USF, let me say the University of San Francisco, because some of y'all might be from Florida, but y'all ain't. University of San Francisco, my alma mater, provides a foundation for students to grow, learn, discover, and thrive by offering high-impact academic and extracurricular programs that center on the unique and varied experiences of students of African descent. BASE equips students with the knowledge, resources, skills, and support necessary to turn dreams into reality. I don't know who wrote that, but it looks wonderful on the website. It sounds great. But these are really the young people in the program. And again, thank you for joining us for discussion. We actually had a group from BASE on the show last year. And it seemed like, Leah seemed like 3 years ago we were in the studio. I think it was just since March, but it seemed like forever that we were in the studio at KMEL. And they had just taken the trip down south to visit the historical landmarks down south. And it was wonderful. Because of COVID, we're not in the studio right now. And this in a way I like being in the studio because we can take calls, I really do. But this visual format is kind of cool. You get to see everybody and everybody gets to see us. So can't take calls tonight, but people are in the chat room, so we may get questions and so on and so forth. We'll do our best to answer. So thank you all of you for joining us. And why don't you introduce yourselves and say what year you are. We gotta get a little biographical and demographic information. What year you are at USF and where you're from. I like to hear where people are from, where you're from. So Kaylin, you get to start.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
So my name is Kaylin. I am a third-year biology major at the University of San Francisco with a health studies minor. And if you couldn't tell from my shirt, I'm from Los Angeles, California. Go Lakers. We just won the championships.
You from LA?
Yes, I am.
Oh, no, we got a private conversation. You from LA? Where in LA? Where you at? Where?
I'm from Inglewood. So.
You from Inglewood? Where you go to high school?
I went to high school in Torrance.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. Because I'm from LA. Do they still call it South Central? They don't call it that no more.
Oh, they tried to justify it, but South Central.
That's South Central. All right. So I'm from Los Angeles. I went to Loyola High School, Jesuit. That's how I ended up at USF, Jesuit. And homegirl, nice to see you. Thank you. You came up here too. Inglewood. My grandmother lived in Inglewood on Regent, but that's a whole nother story. Nice to meet you. All right. Mike, we know you. What's up?
What's up? My name is Michael Gregory. I'm a third year here at the University of San Francisco. I'm majoring in communication studies with minors in biology and African American studies. And I am from the heart, the best city ever, San Francisco.
You are from the city. CJ Jones.
My real name is Christian Jones, and I'm a second year business major with a pre-law, a minor. And I'm from Holly Springs, Mississippi.
Ooh. Why you come on? Look, how did they get you out here to USF?
I moved to California about 3 years ago with my dad, to be with my dad.
Okay. I'm gonna say they're doing some serious recruiting. They must think they like basketball scouts going down to Mississippi to recruit people. But obviously I got a good one. Welcome, thank you. Rowan?
Hi, my name is Rowan. I'm a first year. I'm double majoring in performing arts and social justice and art history. And I'm from Minnesota.
Man, now you gotta give us the town.
I'm from Burnsville. It's like 20 minutes south of the Twin Cities, like Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Okay. It wasn't Kenosha. I was about to say, girl, well, you know, but I know you was there. All right. Okay. And she Belcher.
So hi, my real name is Nigel She Belcher. I go by Shy, just to let you know.
Oh, Shy. Okay. See,
yeah.
Please tell me these things. I'm messing up your name. Everybody laughing at you. I'm sorry, bro.
You good. My name is Shy. I am a freshman undergrad business major, but with interest in hospitality management, and I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Ooh. See, now they know if I ever move, which I ain't. I love North Carolina. I was in Winston-Salem to speak to some young people years ago, and I just loved it. Now I hope it hasn't changed, because I remember being there, and I don't know if it's still like this. People had the doors open. I don't know how it was then. The people, the back doors, everybody was friendly. Everybody was nice. I mean, and Winston-Salem, North Carolina is my first time I ever had. And I haven't been able to have a decent Thanksgiving since a fried turkey. I had it in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Because the guy who brought me there to speak, he said, Dr. Marshall, I want to do something for you. You've been so great. He took me to his house. I said, what you going to do? I'm going to fry you a turkey. I said, what? I mean, you gonna fry some chicken? No, I'm gonna fry you a turkey. And he took it back out. I mean, turkey ain't been the same since Winston-Salem in the house. I love it. And I went to the basketball tournament they had back there. The black basketball tournament. It was great.
Yeah.
Great. But you know, when you go to White College, you don't get to see all that, right? So I got to go to IAA basketball tournament. Oh, it was wonderful. Thank all of you for joining us tonight. We're gonna have this wonderful conversation on voting. And well, let me ask, is USF, oh, no, I ain't gonna say that. I might be messing with you. Yeah, okay, I want to say, y'all getting along? Everybody getting along up there? I know how it is. I went to college there, so sometimes, you know, I mean, everybody getting along. Okay, all right. How many of you, for all of you, how many is this, I'm curious, is your first time eligible to vote? All of you? Okay, all right, so this is your first voting experience. So we showed a video on voting before. So let's begin with this. Now, maybe a crucial question for this election is, are young people gonna vote? I mean, how do young people feel about voting? Your peers, have you talked to them? Are they interested? Just what's going on with that and the group of people you're with, and not just the only ones that base what young people talk to. Are they into this election, and why? So who wants to start? Do I get to pick people? I like volunteers. Shy, I'm gonna start with you since I messed up your name. Okay.
So yeah, I think a lot of peers of my age, they are really interested in wanting to vote. One of the reasons is because all of the social movements that are going on, and especially you have TikTok right now, that is a huge platform for at least expressing the voting awareness, and both of the candidates and the platforms that are around that. It's a lot of uproar in doing voting and being active in the community. And that's one of the things that, as getting new voting rights, we're going to take charge in doing, and it's really going to see how interesting the turnout is going to be.
Okay, CJ, your thoughts on that? And your peers, are they into voting, or?
I have to agree with Shy. I just feel like this election is very important to a lot of people. And for me, I've been ready to vote ever since 4 years ago. I couldn't wait to vote. I couldn't wait to be able to be registered and vote. I believe everyone, you know, with the movements that's going on, and the youth and my peers, I feel like we're tired. You know, we're tired of the way things have been and how things are going. And I think we're about to take real initiative, like right now with this year and voting. I believe the turnout is going to be huge.
Okay. Kaylin, your thoughts about young people in the vote? Where is she?
I think she'll have to come back. Yeah, she's missing right now.
She gone. I ain't done nothing bad yet. No. Okay. Rowan?
Yeah. So like Shai and CJ were saying that right now, I mean, all my friends, all the people that I interact with, we're all very active. And we pay a lot of attention to, I guess, the political climate. And I think voting right now is very important since with the upcoming election and having Donald Trump possibly being reelected, it's pretty frightening. And we know that, you know, especially as the youth, that our votes matter, although to some people they may think it doesn't matter. It really does. And like Shai was saying, like throughout social media, especially like on Instagram, and which was kind of amazing after like all the George Floyd's death and the Black Lives Matter and all of those stuff being very prevalent and very common on social media now. A lot of people are posting about how to register to vote, the importance of voting, and why our votes matter. And like CJ was saying, I was very excited. I've been looking forward to vote for a while and for registering. And I finally turned 18 in August, so I'm very much looking forward to voting.
Thank you. Michael, second time around.
Yeah, I mean, this is my first presidential election, but I was able to vote in like the special election that we had in San Francisco for like Mayor London Breed. But I would say like, yeah, for sure, like this is crucial. And I know that my peers are down for voting just by what I'm seeing on social media, like all my other peers in this call, I said, I've just never seen social media or Instagram in specific be such a platform that it is, like on educating and on talking about like the loopholes within certain propositions for like places like San Francisco, like all these different things, like they're everywhere right now. So it really just shows me that like people my age care about this so deeply that they care to like put it on their feeds all day long. So people are like seeing this stuff. So I would definitely say like young people my age, like we're ready, like we're down for this.
Rowan, are you back?
I think it was Kaylin that was missing, not Rowan.
Oh, okay. Kaylin's missing. Is Kaylin back? And Kaylin back?
Yes, she is.
Okay. Kaylin, you're back.
Yeah.
Young people in the vote. Your thoughts about that? And you go ahead.
Echoing off of what has already been said, I definitely agree. I think the organizations that I've been a part of have been mobilizing since June, late June, calling voters, calling young voters of color specifically, and everyone is definitely like taking the extra precautions to educate themselves, educate others, and really be involved. And you see it with social media, as has been said, and you just see it with the different conversations being had all the time, really breaking down propositions and the wording. So I definitely think that we're ready for this election.
Have you talked to, and it could be a young person, but even an older person, but I'll leave it open for you. And if you talk to somebody who does not intend to or doesn't want to vote, look, you get the people on this panel, Lady Estelle, myself, the Soul, and I mean, we vote in like, little bitty local, dog catcher elections, right? I mean, we gonna vote. But have any of you talked to people that aren't voting and had a conversation with them? What's that like? I know what it's like for me. It's extremely frustrating. But what's it like for you, or if that hasn't happened? I'm just curious if you talk to a young person or an older person who just says they don't want to vote. Any of you ever done that before? Go ahead and just give me your thoughts. Just open up the mic and just start talking. Y'all ain't constricted here. Go ahead, Mike.
I can start. I recently had this conversation with like some godparents and like some aunties and uncles, and we're sitting there and we're like at a family party too. So this is like what made it worse, because I was off at that point. Basically, she's like, I don't vote because my vote doesn't matter, and I'm just like, yeah, what? And then like I just like pulled up statistics to like really like counter her argument like right there, just about like how many people didn't vote in the last presidential election and like why that was like a big number, even though like Hillary Clinton did get more votes than Donald Trump. Like, still, like, if there were that 100,000 people or that 100 million people who did vote, like, it would have been too big of a discrepancy for them to even have the Electoral College, like, choose Donald Trump as president. And then, like, me just bringing that to her, she was just like, oh, wait, like, I didn't know that. Like, and it was just like this complete, like, she wanted to get defensive, like, mode. And that just said a lot to me. Like, it's just like, one, you didn't know this. So, like, how many other people don't know this, you know? But yeah, it was just like a really weird, like, time, like, at the family party after that, because it was just like, now she knew that, like, she needed to vote. So what I've been doing instead is, like, I've been getting, like, a lot of these, like, different, like, Black Women Revolt, like, it's like a page, like, they do, like, the propositions and, like, post their stuff. So what I've been doing, I've just been, like, sending it all to my family. So, like, if they don't know what to vote, they don't know how to break it down, they don't know what these, like, propositions mean, Black Women Revolt has been, like, a great website to just, like, see what these propositions mean in, like, modern terms, like, without the jargon that it, like, really throws in on these voting forms. But yeah, so it was a little bit frustrating, kind of annoying, especially because it's family. And then you're just like, dang, like, I'm really about to have to grill my aunt, like, while I'm eating her ribs. Like, that's just what it is. Like, that's what's about to have to be today, because at this point, like, it's too much that we have to lose right now. And it's, like, not them that's going to be affected most. It's, like, me and people younger than me, her kids.
Yeah, those family conversations are the hardest. It's, you know, it's like soul food conversations. It's like Thanksgiving conversations. You know, maybe we shouldn't be eating together. I know those are tough. Those are tough. Someone else, a conversation with someone who isn't going to vote, and how did that go for you?
Yeah, so for me, I had a conversation about this with a family friend a while ago. And for me, I don't bring up the statistics. I kind of bring up how fortunate we are and how voting, you know, is a right and how it's such an amazing thing. And I kind of also bring in I make sure that they know that them refusing to vote is ignorant of them. The person I had this conversation with, because I'm Sudanese and they're Sudanese, and their parents, you know, they're first generation Sudanese, their parents are immigrants. And I bring up to them, I mean, isn't it amazing when you think about it, that you're getting to vote, you know, in the United States with the history that we have here, while you have relatives in Sudan, cousins, aunts, uncles, who could only dream about voting here. And although to some people may be like, oh, voting is not that big of a deal, but I think it's a very big deal, especially since, you know, Americans, we had to fight for our votes, especially Black women and Black people. So I always bring up, you know, just because they may not like the two candidates right now, that it's very ignorant to use that as an excuse to not vote.
You didn't lose any friends, did you? I mean, I probably have lost some friends.
Not really, but I mean, once I talked to them, they understood, you know, my point.
All right. Good. You're better than me, because I'll be like, anyway, this is not my, okay, this is my, CJ, you had a conversation with anybody?
I haven't had any conversation with anybody that's saying that wasn't going to vote.
Okay. If I have more time, I'll come back to you and ask you, what would you say to him? But that's okay. Kaylin or Shy, you had that conversation with anybody?
Yeah, I'm kind of like the main person in my family who they all go to. They're like, oh, you want to argue? Go to Kaylin. I'm like, okay, I have the time. But I definitely strayed away a little further. I think I had a conversation with my cousin who lives in Arizona, and his thoughts about it was, well, you know, it's a red state. It's going to be red regardless. Like, whatever I do, it doesn't matter. I'm like, right. I understand. And so I think that was 2 years ago. Coming back now, Arizona is actually one Senate seat away from being flipped, and the Democrats could have the hold of it. And he's just like, things have been changing. And so he's actually registered to vote. Like, he's into it. He's learning more. All this information is coming from me, so it's a little biased, but he is learning more. A lot of conversations that I have with non-peers, some of them, they don't want to vote because of who the options are, and they're just satisfied with the options. And I think that's a valid point. But like, that caring has to come way earlier than the preliminaries. Like, you have to start caring a long time before you're down to 2 people. So I definitely understand not being happy with 2 choices, but also how to be, you know, so you, it's just kind of like letting them know, okay, well, even after the presidential election, whatever happens, you still have to vote locally. Like that's where it impacts your community the most.
Right.
And so if you're not worried about the big elections, but you're also not voting locally where it's impacting your community directly, that's what we need to start changing. And that's where we need to start mobilizing. It's kind of how I go with it. So that's my take on it.
And the conversations you have had and the arguments, the things that people put forward are pretty much the same things I hear. You know, my vote doesn't matter. It's in the electoral college, my vote isn't going to matter anyway. That kind of thing. But I like your to your point, the whole. But there's a local elections, there's state elections, there's propositions, there's all these things, and but let me hear from Shai and see what you've heard of when you talk to people.
Yeah, definitely kind of what Kaylin has said about it starts locally. It starts in the grassroots. It starts from the ground up, from the buds all the way to the top of how the grass grows. And what I do start to tell people, I kind of stole this from Judge Lynn Toller. She said, we used to pick cotton, but now we are the cotton. We are the product within this system and pay prisons who they make money off of. And what I love about what she said was how kind of we start from the bottom. They had to start from the bottom somewhere and somehow. And so what we have learned from our history is that we had to fight tooth and nail for our voting rights. And now that we have them, we have to put them to a purpose some way and somehow, and that is getting people to the voting ballots. It doesn't mean that you have to vote for these big ticket parties, these big ticket candidates on there for the federal locals and all that, but we have to get you there to vote for the people that you need to represent you in your hometown, in your areas. And that was kind of some of the things that I had to speak with a couple of people and peers. Was like, okay, we're not voting for Biden or Trump. You got to vote for the people that's in your hometown. You got to vote for these people who's putting your own peers in jails, who's incarcerating you in these local areas, because these are the people who matter, because they change however your town is going to look for the next several years.
One of the sobering things that comes out of elections, and let's just take the last general election, was the number, in this case, of Black folks who didn't vote and had folks in Wisconsin, Black folks in Wisconsin, and in particular in Milwaukee, or some of these places had voted, the election would have been completely different. And then they look at it and they say, oh man, I didn't know it was that close. Well, of course you don't know. You don't know that. You don't know it's going to be. And when you see those numbers and people say, if you had come out in numbers like you had in, when President Obama was running for re-election or in time before, you would have had an entirely different result. And I don't think people think about that, but they should. But I'll tell you a group, just to sort of wrap up this thing about people not voting. I have a hard time talking to people. I do. Like, and knows the one who I have. I think we persuaded him to vote this time. But I'll tell you a group that does not understand people who don't vote. We had a show maybe a month ago and 3 weeks ago on formerly incarcerated who are out and trying to get the fact Proposition 17 is on the ballot right now. We actually talked about that. To get people on, is it probation or parole, the right to vote? But and there has been a movement in the country, Florida in particular, other places and around, where they're really trying to get those who have served their time to get the right to vote. And I'm gonna tell you, they ain't having it. They were like, you ain't voting? I mean, I remember Ann, when Dorsey Nunn looked across in the studio and said, you ain't voting? What? I thought he was gonna jump across and strangle the boy. Now, Dorsey, you can't do that. They are not playing when it comes to vote. I mean, when they were on the show, they were like, and they were talking about how in the years in prison, they have been studying and doing the lawyering and watching, and they can't wait for the time they get the chance to vote. So I think some of those folks who ain't vote need to talk to them. But I think they should tread lightly, but they're gonna be very, very forceful in their belief that you should participate in the political process via voting. I want to bring up a film. I know, by the way, Dr. Harrison is in the chat room and he's got questions and she's watching all of you. That's okay. You can still do what you want to do. I want to bring up a film, and one of the things I said and Lady Estelle knows this 4 years ago when he got elected, it's hard for me to say it, he got elected, was my biggest concern was him undoing all the gains that we've had, we've worked so hard for. And believe me, I've worked a whole lot for a bunch of stuff, this included. But there is a film which I've been urging people to watch. It's actually narrated by, oh God, what's his name? The actor. Anyway, it's called The Voter Suppression. It's called Rigged, The Voter Suppression Playbook. I don't know if you've seen it, but there is a real heavy, and you hear about it in pockets in states like Florida and Georgia and so on and so forth, but voter suppression is real. I mean, it's real. I mean, it's like, I mean, we know the whole thing with him contesting votes and all this sort of thing, but so some of these places, it's the equivalent of poll tax. I mean, it's like Jeffrey Wright. Thank you, Jeffrey Wright. It's the equivalent of poll tax. So I don't think people understand. They really trying to take and I always get, which was a 13th, 14th, and 15th, maybe it was the 15th Amendment, gave you the right to vote. They're trying to take it away. They're trying to take it away. And if you want to I turned this film over to people and told them to look at it and read it. Back is actually hard to watch. It's scary to watch. It's how serious folks are. It's trying to stop you from just going to the polls and exercising your right to vote. Let me pivot to what issues are important to you in this election. Kaylin, what's important to you in this election?
What's important to me in this election, everything, racial issues, climate change, because we would be without this earth, voters' rights for parolees, healthcare, and that, education, all of it, take away the student loans, please. Everything, just across the board, every single issue I care about, every single human rights issue I care about, and I feel like they're not being talked about enough, but that's what I care about for this election, just human rights in general.
Yeah, I'm writing these down because I'll probably come back and maybe pick some up and discuss something a little further. Mike Kell, what's important to you? What is important to you just in this election?
I would say for San Francisco in general, really getting these storefronts occupied. There's so many places here that small businesses could really run in. So really hoping this ballot measure passes. I would also just say opportunities for all, and like the 16, like being able to be 16 and like voting on like small things. Just because I feel like that's a good way to train us. Like if I had that when I was like younger, I would feel like it would be easier to understand the jargon, to understand like how do I like find out about certain resources, like just like around voting in general. I feel like it's a good way to train us, like especially young people, because I feel like young people are the ones this is gonna like mainly affect. So even to get those young people who are like 16, 17, who are in high school, who can like learn this stuff from a teacher, even if they can, like the teacher can help them, it just like makes for a more well-informed citizen. And I feel like that's where it starts, like in education, in the classroom. And if it doesn't start there, at these community programs, which a lot of students go to, like which I went to myself. So even having like, I know like Alive and Free, like we had a polling place at Alive and Free. And like say that was something we did on a Tuesday night. Cause I remember on Tuesday night when Hillary Clinton was winning, and we were all sitting in the room, like we had a polling place going on like in the next room over. So to even be able to like have 16, 17-year-olds, all the people who are in Alive and Free on Tuesday nights, be able to go walk over next door to go vote. That's the vision. I just see like that's like a necessity.
Wow, I like that. Okay. Ron, what's important to you?
There are a lot of things that are important to me. One of the most important would be women's right, in particular, like a woman's right to abortion, and also funding things like Planned Parenthood to make abortion more affordable, especially for, you never know like what someone's whether they may be able to afford it or not. Also more funding into schools, especially in inner city schools. And I have also another thing like with the women's right is I I feel like, well, I strongly believe that like feminine hygienic products like pads, tampons, stuff like that we shouldn't have to pay for it. It should be free. So funding into that, especially in school and the education system, I hope that the entire educational system will be like completely rewritten and made in a perspective that benefits all people, and it's not just a very Eurocentric way of thinking, as well as defunding the police.
Oh, I like y'all. Oh, okay, all right, okay. I know you never know who you're gonna find on the cover. So far, you're in my wheelhouse. Shy.
Yeah, so some of the issues that I kind of really align for and really want to push is kind of gun rights and gun violence. Being in the area where I kind of see gun violence a lot or hear about it, it's really important, honestly, maybe because I was old school grown and coming from my parents, we're back to, we don't need a gun to fight. What are you picking up a gun for? What is a gun gonna do? You don't need that. You solve things by communicating and figuring out. You don't need a gun to solve your problems because a bullet don't have no name and it doesn't have no target. It's gonna hit somebody. So that's one of the things I'm passionate about and want to see changed around that. Another thing would be education. I do feel like education is only in certain areas, but we need to expand it to your areas that do not get that representation a lot. And another kind of thing is youth engagement. Sometimes when I kind of sit and reflect, I see how much engaged youth now are versus how when I was growing up, how youth were. We was in there, out there doing things, advocating and voting, but we kind of see a little transition of how some of the youth are laid back and not engaged with things. So we have to try to get and rejuvenate that group or that area so that way they can be the leaders of tomorrow.
I love people who are pumped. I mean, you pumped? Oh, God, y'all don't need to be around me. Michael already know. You know how I am. Okay. CJ, what you got?
I think this election, everything is important. But the main thing that's very important to me is bringing unity back to this country, because right now it feels like the person that's in is just dividing us more and more every day, it seems. And it's also small things as such. We're still in a pandemic. We went from being 2 weeks in quarantine to a month in quarantine to now we're all the way in October. So I feel like we need somebody that also puts in with bringing unity to the people. And another thing that's very important is education reform. There's funds that are put into other things that I feel like should be put into education, because that is something that is very important. And those things teach us small things like voting and etc. So that's very important to me.
You mentioned the pandemic, and I just thought I was about to ask the question of what's happening on campus with this, but then you said it, and I realized y'all can't be on campus. You can't do the organizing and the campus, the campus activity that and those of you who are sophomores at least and juniors at least have that experience, but the freshmen, I guess, you can't have that experience. And all of you sound like activists. And being able to do that both on your campus and because I know some of you have been doing that already, and out in the community is a great thing. And we're all limited being able to do that. And it's tough to do in this time. So I was about to ask, and I said, I thought. So yes, the whole thing about the pandemic I think a lot of people would say, had the leadership been differently around this thing, we wouldn't be in a situation with 210,000 people dead and over 1 million infected and 7 million worldwide and so on and so forth. So when people say it doesn't matter who, and I've had this argument with people, it doesn't matter who's running things. Oh, it does matter who's running things. it definitely matters who is running things. Boy, you guys, these are just wonderful answers.
So I'd like to throw out.
Go ahead, Lady Estelle.
That are really important to me. In addition, everything that you said. I mean, healthcare, education reform, police reform, bringing about unity wherever that's possible, honesty and integrity back in the administration, because that's sorely missing. But Dr. Marshall, I'm going to have to go to, because I'd like to hear from the young people, and I got to share. Young people, you all are brilliantly, amazingly brilliant. Oh my goodness, I appreciate your intelligence, your brilliance, and your passion. I got to go to Dr. Harrison's question. She says, I'm going to read what she wrote in the chat. I know you've seen it. She says, I've encountered quite a few young folks who are Bernie Sanders supporters and are so turned off by both Biden and Trump that they don't want to vote. Now, I'm gonna, and it says, so what would you say to them? And so what I'm gonna say or add to this is, after Trump was elected, he sent out a blanket thank you to the African-American community all across the United States. He said, thank you for not voting.
That's what he said.
Because thank you for getting me elected, because your not voting is what got me in. Now, he didn't break it down quite that simple, but I just need to make it really clear. Thank you for not voting. And what we had in our last election were people who voted for someone who had a 2% possibility of winning, which means that's a vote down the toilet. Okay. And Bernie has endorsed Biden. So I'm just curious, and I would love to hear what you would say to anybody who was for Bernie and they're questioning Biden and they know about Trump. I mean, but I know that we've seen people that go with what they see. This doesn't make sense, but this doesn't. Okay, I'm babbling because I saw somebody on Facebook who was trashing Biden, and I said, well, I need you to remember what you got. And if we remember what we've got and not make excuses for it. So what would you say to anybody that says, I'm not going to vote because I'm a Bernie person?
Anybody got thoughts about that? What would you say? And you may not have thought about it. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, so my thought about it, I was very pro Bernie. I really like his views and the things that he wanted to change. And I was very upset when he dropped out. But I mean, it wasn't like, as much as I would want him to be president, it's not like there was a chance for him. And, you know, when people, because I don't like Joe Biden at all, you know, but I don't like Donald Trump more than I don't like Joe Biden. And I know for a fact that even if I were to vote for like a third party candidate, that vote would just go towards Trump. Any vote against, you know, if you vote any other candidate, any other party, that's just a vote towards Trump. And
it's a toilet. That's a toilet vote. I just need to say
it really is.
It is a toilet vote. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And you're just wasting your vote in that sense. And I mean, there's many things about Donald Trump that are very, very like questionable. And honestly, I don't even know how he's still president or how he even got elected. But another thing that I hope the more closed-minded Americans will pay attention to is how he handled the pandemic. And like you had brought up, Dr. Marshall and CJ, is that the way if he would have handled the pandemic, because, you know, a lot of people say, well, it's not his responsibility, it's supposed to be locally handled, this and that. But that's, I mean, in a sense, that's true, but also it's not. If you see how well other countries are doing, especially like if you see like Taiwan or New Zealand or Finland, if you see how well these countries are doing in comparison to the United States, which is deemed to some people as like the greatest nation, it's very embarrassing. It's quite embarrassing to see how poorly we're doing, especially with the amount of money we have, the technology and all of that stuff, especially how him, after he had got the virus and how he
got it.
And he got it, and he literally went out and just stood in front of the press and made it seem as though it wasn't that big of a deal, which is very selfish when he sees how many Americans died, 210,000 over, and his entire party, they're all taking it as a joke, and it's really frustrating. And I hope the people who were Trump supporters and Republicans, that they take into consideration how poorly they're handling the virus, and how if it would have been handled better, if it would have been handled, and if they would have taken action to it when it first started, when there were first signs of the virus, then we wouldn't be in the situation that we are in. And honestly, at this point, if a person is still pro-Trump, then I think they lack brain cells, because there's so many faults to Donald Trump. And the fact that some people still want to support him, it's scary, because at this point, you're not even supporting him, you're just idolizing him and worshiping him, because there's nothing that this man says that is factual, anything that is beneficial, or anything that will really help us.
Ooh, anybody else want to add to that about it?
Well, to say what you feel and what you think, and I really, Rowan, I really appreciate your candidness about being a Bernie supporter, not liking Biden, but looking at what's going to happen. It's like where we were with Trump and Hillary. And people said, well, I don't like Hillary, but then you've got somebody who's a liar and a cheat, and we know it. I mean, he's lying and cheating before he gets, it's like, so, really, 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 we didn't even think, I did, but people didn't stop to think that with Hillary, as a woman, she has something to prove. She wasn't gonna get in there and mess up. But Trump let you know he was messed up before he even got in. And people still said, well, what? But no, he lied and he cheated. And so now—
Don't let Michelle get going on Donald Trump.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Marshall. Hold me back. So I really appreciate, your candidness, but even more than that, your clarity. Thank you. Next, what are you going to say? What would you say?
Anybody else want to take a stab at that today?
I think I would try to tell them, you kind of got to look at the policies, who align more with Biden, if you Biden or bust, and Joe Biden has the most policies that would align more with Bernie. So I feel you kind of have to look into that also. And you also have to think about, the Congress. You can't just, you kind of think when he say, free healthcare, free education and all of that for college students and everything, you have to also think about the Congress and who's in Congress. Is it mostly Republican Congress? Is it mostly Democratic Congress, and all of that? And you kind of got to blind out the more extreme things and then think about, okay, who maybe I should vote, just go ahead and vote, because Biden has similar policies to Bernie that may be a little less extreme that could actually kind of pass in Congress. Because a lot of people don't think about that. They kind of just think about the presidents and their election, but you got to also think about Congress and what they can do, how they can stop, and will those bills pass?
And then remember that with the current administration, what's passing? Because what's passing is that really supporting you and your interests. because it's not. It's not. It hasn't, and it won't. People don't realize that employment tax that Trump says he's going to get rid of, that's Social Security. And they don't know that. I just need you to know that. So he's, like cutting Medicare, taking Social Security, like really? And the Congress, the current, is saying that's cool. But I think that when people know, then they have more power. All right, so yes, somebody else, thank you. And I just love that little accent, that little Mississippi accent. I think that's just adorable.
Thank you. Everybody knows I'm an ABT person, so I mean, everybody know what ABT means? Anybody but Trump. So you run, everybody know it. I mean, fine.
You said ABT, I thought you said ABC.
Everybody know it. I mean, like ABT. I mean, Michael, you run, cool. I mean, my 10-year-old granddaughter, cool. See, because character is a big thing to me. So I know all y'all got way better character than, so I'm an ABT person. But anybody else want to answer that question for Lady Estelle? Please do so.
I see in the chat that Kanye is on the ballot. Oh, I love it. What does Ron say? No, you said I am not. Don't even think about drawing that line. Don't even color in that bubble.
I go back at the college dropout. I thought the boy could actually make some music. So like, I mean, Kanye, Kanye, oh my God, Kanye. But that's all right. That's a whole nother discussion. He's only balloting in some states, like 5 or 4 and whatever. That's a whole another.
He's throwing away his money. Can I hear from somebody else? Shy.
Yeah, I honestly, in answer, what would I would tell someone who supports Bernie Sanders?
Who said that they will not vote because Bernie is off the ballot. Yeah. So now I'm just not voting at all.
Yeah, you're kind of in a tough position. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what perfect thing to say to someone, because there's honestly not one perfect thing to tell someone.
Okay.
And like me and Michael, we're in emotional intelligence class. It's kind of hard because you're in a two-way street. You may say one thing and it may go left. You may say nothing and it may go right. But what I can tell them, or I can provide them, is with information and facts to back them up. Kind of like what Rawan was saying. You got to let them know, like, okay, hey, what would Bernie do? We see that he's starting to endorse Joe Biden. So maybe you need to get on that same train thought of starting to support Biden. But you can only lead the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink it. That is it.
That's the hard part, making them drink it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, you may not know what you're gonna have with Biden, but to me, I say you know what you got with Trump. It ain't like he's unknown now, and I just start ticking off himself. And if y'all cool with this, fine, but don't come over my house. No, I should say something like that, but that's how I feel. I know what I got here. And Lady Estelle does have a thing that she called down. I'm not going to ask you to repeat that tonight. We'll wait until it's over and you can stay. But I remember you said on the air before the 4 years ago, before the election, you said, I'm going to tell you what he is, and you put a name out. So you remember what I'm talking about, right? Don't say you don't, please, because sometimes you do that.
Okay, well, let's hear from somebody else while I'm trying to remember.
Anybody else want to comment on that?
Please.
Okay. All right.
Really? Wait a minute. Hold on.
Well, maybe they don't have anything to say. Hey, you got 3 out of 5. That's 60%. That's pretty good.
Oh, see. All right, Dr. Marshall. Dr. Marshall, say you need to let him know how much you appreciate that I'm not coming. It's like, because Kaylin, I really like to hear what your thoughts are. And Michael, I absolutely would like to hear what your thoughts are. I mean, it's important. It's important to be clear and to know, because what if it's coming? It's coming. And because the questions come up, you may have that experience. Somebody's going to say, well, I ain't voting because it ain't Bernie. And you already know as intelligent young people, you know that not vote is indeed a vote. And you know where it's going. Okay. So you need to, what'd you say?
I actually run across this conversation a lot. I do a lot of phone banking in Arizona. So I run across it. That's why I think I was a little triggered, which is why I didn't want to answer. Okay. I agree with Shai. It's really difficult to answer because there's not a perfect answer. There are a lot of valid reasons why Biden, you know, he's who we have. He is who we have. And I think it's really hard too, just because every argument that I hear against him is a fact. There's nothing untrue, opinions aside. There are a lot of things, a lot of policies that he stands by that I would not have agreed with in his political career. I think what I tend to do, I don't try to force people, just because for argument's sake, the more you try to force someone, the harder they stand in their stance. Like it's immovable. And so I definitely don't try to argue with them. But if someone's saying that they're not voting in this particular election, I'm gonna say, like, I think the first question I'd be like, at all, like not even for the propositions, and then let's talk about the propositions first. And I would like let's build off of that. Biden is who we have, and that's who a lot of people are endorsing. I just know for me, I take it kind of personal because I know how I felt my senior year of high school, the day after Trump got elected. And I think I will never forget how I felt waking up from my nap, seeing that he won, and going back to thinking that it was a dream, and then waking up and he actually got elected. And so I know that I will never personally forget how that felt. And I think walking into a campus, colorblind campus, by the way, where the only people who were scared were myself and my other like comrades of color of marginalized communities whose livelihoods were threatened, literal lives threatened, parents deported, children in cages. This is what we're seeing now. This is who we have now. And I don't want to wake up again November 4th and going through the same nightmare. And so I think it's very, very personal. It's just like the feeling that I felt. Will Biden completely eradicate that? Absolutely not. It's hard to say Biden. Absolutely not. At some point, I want to semi-wake up from this nightmare of the Trump presidency and how it's been so intentionally violent to Black communities, to communities of color, to marginalized identities. It's so destructive, and it's all intentional. He just means to do what he says. His entire chosen, it's so systemic. I'm just like, we have to get rid of him. We absolutely have to dump Trump. It's an absolutely toxic relationship. Let's let it go. You got to cut it off sometimes. It's time to release him and on to other things. Will Biden be better? Biden will be different from this nightmare that we're in. And so we just have to use what we work with. I think I also bring up how Republicans are sleeping perfectly fine, knowing that they have this orange human in office. They are sleeping so well, and they are the least divisive group, just because they're like, worse and worse, that's fine with me. I'm fine with whatever. Trash, I'm fine. Like, they do not care. And so I think regardless of if you decide not to vote, they will be voting. They will be voting just like they show up to every single election. They don't miss an election. And these are the people that we're going against, these generational voters.
That's right.
Black people, like, we have struggled. Our vote hasn't, we fought for this. And so I think even to be able to elect yourself out of something and say, I'm not going to vote, that is your choice. But, our ancestors, they didn't put in all this work for us to get here and then fumble the ball. So I'll be doing my part. I hope they stand with me and do theirs. And then from there, we can talk about how to break the system down. That's it.
So what I hear you saying is, as you draw the line, you're going to be praying like, all right, Jesus, now. I draw this line in the name of Jesus right now. I hear you. Oh, I hear you. Okay. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you. That was powerful. That was powerful, and that was clear, and it was so important and so necessary. Here's the thing. You need to remember something. I got to get me back where I can see. Where is she at? Kaylin, you are gifted. and you have a voice, yes, ma'am, take your hand down.
You remind me of Barbara Jordan.
And do not hesitate to use your voice and the knowledge that you have. It is a gift, and the clarity comes through. The clarity and the power. Each of you do. But Kayla, do not sit on that. Am I pointing my finger? Do not sit on your gift. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Right. All right.
Let me add, and this underscores people who make the decision not to because of, you don't like either one or, in this case, I was a Bernie supporter. The damage has been done. And it comes in an area that a lot of us don't think about, and that's in the judiciary. You see, the judges that have been appointed under Trump are going to be there for life. So he can be gone. Yeah, you mean, I don't think people understand whoever is in that office gets to appoint judges to their point of view that can undo. Right now, Obamacare might be over, all of this. It's up in the, so when people say that, you got to remember that that whole judgeship thing is huge. It's huge. And right now, Barrett is up, before they wouldn't put Merrick Garland in. I don't think people just think about that part of it because, decisions can be undone. Decisions won't be made. They could be unmade. Rights that have been here for years can perhaps be gone because of the whole because of the appointment of judges. Add that into, and that's the argument I will go to, because I don't think people it's almost a silent move, a silent killer that you really don't think because it's not publicized. And usually when it comes up big, it's the Supreme Court nominee. But throughout the system right now, in fact, one thing he has done is what I've heard of record number 200 or so judges appointed in the time he's been in office. And that might be a smaller number that's actually happened. So we're going to have problems no matter what, because those folks don't necessarily think in your best interest. Let's put it like that.
And I would just like to repeat what I heard Kaylin say. The generational voting. The Republicans are going to show up. They don't miss a vote date. And the policies that are being put in place are not always in our favor. We need to show up and change the drama that we've been in for 4 years. Even if what we've seen and what we know, but what we definitely know, it can't be worse, because he's got something to prove too. Remember, I said that he's got something to prove. So show up.
And
thank you. That was just powerful.
And that leads me into, I want to ask, how do you feel about what's going on in the country right now? And I'm thinking particularly around, social justice. It's never been a year like this, and I've been around a long time. I was your age at another time, and it's not even like this time to me. But just your thoughts about how do you feel about what's going on in the country right now? Jump on it. And let me just say, I'm a huge NBA fan, and what I admire, I love it for the basketball, but what they did in that bubble for all that time, I remember days, just putting that front and center was an amazing thing to me. But that's me. What? How do you feel about what's going on right now? Shai, let's start with you.
Yeah, Dr. Marshall, like you said, starting that off, the NBA has done really an incredible job of trying to jump start that whole standing for what is right thing. We kind of saw how like the NFL tried to do that, but you got, for lack of better words, you got a political institute that don't support that at all.
Right.
You see it right across the board. They don't support it. So for better or worse, what is going on right now and how does that really make me feel? It's kind of bittersweet in a way, because for me, I had never seen nothing like this. This is really kind of my first actual time seeing large scale of social justice awareness and issues that are going on in this country right now. And I've been on this earth for 18 years, almost going on 19. So it's kind of amazing to see it, but it's also looking as if, wow, this is what our ancestors were going through, but 10 times worse. We do kind of see some of those issues that are going on from back then. It's really coming to eye. But we do have these other words and political correctness that tries to populate itself and try to denounce and demeanor some of the words that we're trying to actually do for the movement. But one thing I can say is that we can't keep this pedal on the gas for so long and then just let it up all of a sudden. We got to keep pushing this. We got to keep riding this, because that is the only way something will get changed. They are counting on us to let go of the gas. I bet you Trump is sitting there, okay, well, they about to let go. Just let's wait it on out. And that's what we basically doing. Let's wait it on out. But we got to keep pushing them. We got to keep forcing them. Just how they forced us back in the day, slavery and all that. We got to keep forcing them, pushing them to do their job and do their part, because we're going to do ours, but we just can't stop doing it. And that's our problem as a minority group, is that sometimes we do give up and sometimes we do have this overwhelm of discouragement, but we have to keep going.
Thank you. Michael, how you feel about what's going on, social justice?
Bless his heart. He's only 18. Bless your heart. My goodness.
Michael, how you feel about what's going on?
I think, well, I appreciate it. I just feel like I've never seen social media be used as such a platform that it's being used as today. Just seeing so many people bring forth this like new knowledge, just like stuff that you wouldn't see like on a common day-to-day, and just using social media for our good, really like for our advantage. I just really appreciate that. And I also just think like it has really been a big push for why people are so informed now that they are, because like we sit on our phones all day. Like I can be like one to attest to that, like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, all that good stuff. But to even like see some of these things that are like quick to catch the eye, that are really meeting like students and like young people where they are. I just think this is just such a great idea. Like even though like social media has its downfalls, I really feel like it's just like being used for like such good right now, that it's really helping like my people like me who are young, who are voting but don't know how to get past all this jargon, like etc. And it just really encourages us to have these dinner conversations, like with your family, with your peers, like, and actually converse about these things. Like that's the one thing they don't want you to do. They don't want you to converse about these things. They don't want you to be in the known. They just don't want you to be ultimately seen even at a polling station. So to even see like my peers having arguments with other people, having dialogue with other people, that excites me. Like just because it's like, at least you're talking about it. Like even if it's not right, or I don't see it as right, like you're thinking about it. You're thinking about voting. You're thinking about all these different propositions. You're thinking about everything that's going on right now. And I also think like this time really in social media and what we've seen has really brought to light exactly what America has been about since its beginning. Racism being caught on camera, sexism being caught on camera, all of these things that our own president is saying, who's supposed to like represent everyone in America, like totally not the situation. But now that we have these phones, this technology, these gadgets, it's really allowing us to see exactly where we need to still work on and actually do the work that it takes to work on it.
Thank you. CJ, your thoughts about social justice, what's going on now?
I have to agree with Shy with the bittersweet moment, because it's just amazing seeing, when I turn on the TV, I see someone that looks like me a lot now. And and I hope this isn't something that's just kind of to quiet the Black people, but I don't see it as that. I see it as kind of steps forward within the Black community that's like, wow, there's a commercial, it's Black people. Like, I feel like I haven't really just seen that as much. There's shows now, there's so many shows that are coming out that's about Black pride, and it's just so many people saying that, and it's an amazing thing to me. And also it hits home to me because I want to see change so bad. I want to see us all come together as one nation, truly what they say, what the founding fathers say that we're supposed to be like. And I truly see that happening, because there's people, I have friends that aren't of color that are actually out there marching and putting their bodies on the line to be able, they're being tossed into jail because they're trying to fight for something that is for my people and for people of color. And kind of with the things that's going on that happened to Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, those things, it hurts a lot. And Dr. Harrison kind of put me on to something about the slave laws that the French had in place in Louisiana. And she was just talking about how those laws are similar to what is going on now. Like the police being able to do certain things, and they're putting their knees into our own people's neck and killing them and everything. And it's like that happened, that didn't happen so far away. And with that, they just recently released photos of color with Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all of those activists. And I felt like that was so powerful, because seeing it in black and white, it makes everyone believe that it happened so long ago. But this is all so recent. And everyone, they love to say, oh, that, get over it, it happened a long time ago. But those things are happening right now. And we have a president in office that is okay with certain groups, like white supremacist group, that he's condoning, like he's making it seem like it's okay for them to be able to do the things that they are doing. It's okay for them to be able to be the police. They can judge, they can do all these things. And it's like, why? Like, how could this happen in 2020? How can we forget about what happened to our ancestors when things that's going on now, people are comparing to what was going on with the civil rights movement? How, I just don't understand how can people sit and truly believe that what's happening now is that we should just be quiet and not speak up on the situations that are going on right now. It's just something that I don't understand. How could you as a person morally believe that when it's all over the news every single day? It's all over social media. It's all on the social medias. And certain news medias do show people kind of the riots, what they say, quote unquote, riots that's going on. But on social media, and I believe this is why the youth is so juvenated to be able to just go out and go march and go do all these things to become the activists that we are. And because of social media has come a long way, and I believe that's what helped fueling what's going on, because this isn't just something that's going on in the US. This is going on around the whole world. And if you go on social media, you will see that. But a lot of people is able to watch certain news channels, like they only watch Fox News or they only watch CNN, but they're not showing you the full story of what's truly going on. It's peaceful. It's very peaceful. There's people causing trouble in white supremacists, and our own president wouldn't even tell them that they should stop. And they are doing things that isn't okay in this country. And that's why I think it's all bitter.
You mean like trying to kidnap a governor of a state?
Trying to kidnap a governor of a whole state, and it's like he's okay with that, and I just don't understand that. But it's bittersweet. I see change coming. I believe it's truly coming because I'm seeing so many people that aren't of color marching, and we're coming in. It's gonna be unity soon. I believe it, and I truly have faith in my people and what's going on in this country.
Ron, your thoughts on what's going on? Social.
Yeah.
Anyway, word out.
So I have a lot of thoughts, and I have a lot of opinions as well. So for the most part, I'm very happy with how things are, and I'm very glad that, you know, people are finally starting to be aware of these social issues. But at the same time, I'm very frustrated. I'm also very annoyed. I'm annoyed at the fact that a lot of companies, a lot of big people, big figures are starting to take this whole movement, all the stuff that is going on, as a way to benefit themselves rather than to benefit the people that are faced by these oppressions. For example, you will see these big companies like Netflix, for example, or these big companies just suddenly putting all this light on Black history, on Black Lives Matter, when before they never cared about it. They never spoke about it. And it makes me so frustrated because, you know, this stuff matters. You know, us as Black people, we have to live with this our whole lives. And it's frustrating when people only seem to care when it's trending or it's you know, celebrities are posting about it. And as for the sense of like social media is a blessing and a curse at the same time. A blessing, as you know, we can spread a lot of things very fast, but at the same time, a lot of false information, and you get a lot of very crazy things to go out. And how CJ was talking about how like the riots and stuff like that. I'm from Minnesota. I was 20 minutes away from where George Floyd was murdered. I went to almost every single protest, and I was on the front lines, and I witnessed a lot of things. You know, I was tear gassed. I was shot with rubber bullets. I almost got arrested, and like my experiences. And when you see the riots, you know, when you're protesting, you're doing it for a reason. And I had been protesting and from crowds of 3,000 people until there was only 25 people protesting. And it's so crazy how in the beginning, people have so much drive. They care so much about it. But towards the end, people just seem to be like, you know, it's whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. Right. That frustrates me a lot. And another thing that we really need to focus on is education, because the one thing that is, I think, the most important thing is education. And in America, our educational system is very much flawed. And I talk a lot about this because it's very important. At the age of 7, that's when biases are formed. And when you think of biases, they're like a rubber band. The more you teach yourself, the more you learn and educate yourself, the more this rubber band expands. And at any given moment, it can go right back to how it was before. And children, the youth are the most important people. And when I talk about youth, I'm talking about like kindergartners, preschoolers, kids in elementary school, because what they learn in school, they're going to be the future. You know, we're fortunate enough, I mean, to take, the older you are, you're fortunate enough, if you are, to learn about African American history, Native American history, true American history, history of the world, and not just the white Eurocentric view. And when you see children, kindergartners, elementary schoolers, they're taught such a sanitized and concealed history of America. It's frightening because you never know what these children will grow up to believe. And that's why we need to pay the most attention to our youth, and very much like young youth. And we need these parents to teach their children to not have biases. We need to teach them to be able to hang out and play with all types of children, whether they be of different religions, of different races, ethnicities. And we also need to put a focus also on like I'm glad now that like our generation, like Gen Zs in particular, are very much open with LGBTQ+. And that's very important also for children as well, because a lot of people, they will say Black Lives Matter, but they will exclude, you know, Black trans lives, Black queer lives, when all Black lives matter, especially Black women, you know. And with the whole case of Breonna Taylor, it's really upsetting, and it makes me so frustrated, because you see how Black women, we are not protected. We do not get the same amount of support as Black men do. And I'm not, you know, trying to belittle or degrade Black men in any way, but it's true. Black women, we are the bottom of the barrel. And there's so many things that are flawed in this country. And I'm glad that people are finally opening their eyes up to realize it. And it's just so, it's just, to me, it's amazing in a way how all of this is happening, and it's kind of happening quite suddenly, but it's also long overdue, and it's frustrating. And like for me, I'm from Sudan, I brought up before, and I will see my cousins and my relatives in Sudan. They think so, they have these such high standards, and they see America as this amazing country. And when I go back home, I was back home last summer, I was like, no, this is not true. And I literally brought books with me because I took an African American studies class. I brought them to Sudan, and I just translated to my cousins, like, no, this is what happens in America. This is the truth of America. And they're like, no, I don't believe that. I mean, they still don't understand about slavery. They don't realize how slavery still impacts us today. And I just, like, especially like on the topic of education, it just gets me very heated up, and I just start going off, because it's something that is very, very, very important, that we need to educate our youth, especially because, no offense to the older generation, but you can't teach the old dog new tricks, but we need to now focus on
well, I'm glad I learned all my stuff young, because you ain't about to teach me.
Yes.
I can see you wrote me off. Now playing.
Yeah. And then another thing that kind of bothers me is how people are paying a lot of attention to like the white allies, when to me it's not about them, and a lot of the protests I went to, people kept saying, wow, there's so many white allies, thank you for coming out. But it's like, let's not make it about them. This is about us. This is about Black people. We should not be praising white people for doing the right thing, for caring about human rights and social justice. So when people start praising white people for doing the absolute bare minimum, nothing frustrates me and makes me more angry, because we should not be praising anyone for doing the right thing, but literally the absolute bare minimum. So yeah, that was my little rant. Sorry.
Well, your classes must be great. Dr. Harrison, can I come sit in on the class? Kaylin, all right. Your thoughts about what's going on in this country?
A lot was shared already. There's so much I can say, but then also I feel like kind of doesn't need to be said. I think as far as the digital age of media and activism, it's amazing in the information that we get to have access to, but also kind of where Rawan was leading to, there's the performative activism that tends to overshadow and overrule a lot of the activism that's going on. And that's what frustrates me. So I definitely try to decenter whiteness from my platforms and uplift like voices of color, narratives of color, stories of color, activists of color. I think we're in a global a pandemic. And I think this moment where we're trying to work through it, and it's just capitalism. It's just like, well, let's keep working. Let's make a new normal. And that's not what anyone needed. I think we haven't really had a chance to like sit down, catch our breath, take everything in, and just say like, wow, we're in a pandemic. We don't really have a chance for that. And I think especially with the Black community, this has been the moment for everyone being forced in the house and constantly being shown this Black trauma on a constant basis. I think at one point it becomes overwhelming, but then also what I'm seeing among my peers and from my peers is this social solidarity in a level, where this community health and community love has also been so uplifting and able to like keep people going. Because I think, especially with Zoom, like you run into Zoom burnout so quickly. I've been staring at a Zoom screen every weekday since March, no type of break. And so I think, but I'm able to rely on my community and have them uplift me in these social spaces because of social media. So those are the things that I'm appreciative for, but also the performative activism. We saw it with Blackout Tuesday. Everyone was so quick to close Black squares, and they said, that's enough. Let me close down activism for the rest of my life. I've done enough. And I think also what Shai had mentioned we have to keep going. And so I just definitely want to stress that too, like after this election, that's when it starts all over again. And that's when the time when we continue to mobilize, we'll still be in the house. We continue to mobilize, continue to share information, crowdfunding, source funding, all that. And I think it's important to uplift the gut too. Like there are good things that are happening from activism as well in the social spaces. It's just a lot. Like I'm learning so much every day. I feel like my brain is going to explode. Right. Also, I'm appreciative of it, but then also like, maybe Sundays aren't for Zoom. Like, let me close it down for a little bit. Definitely like trying to step back from it just because there's always so much. But then I'm thankful to be in a position to understand it, be able to relate it to my great grandmother who's still asking me like, what's this proposition about? I'm like, I don't really know, but I was trying to explain it to you. And so I'm very, very thankful for the position that I'm in to have the social media and be able to rely on supervisors, asking them about different propositions, breaking down the information, the jargon, like Mike L was saying. So there's the good and the bad with it. It's just like how you want to utilize it and how do you use your platform. So I know for me, people from my high school were taken off almost immediately. I said, hey, you know, it's a lot going on. And they were like, lattes. I said, okay, period. I don't need you on my feed. And so my feed has gotten to the point where I'm really appreciative of it because there's always some type of activism going on and some type of uplifting going on. And so that was important for me to filter out my feed. Being on social media all the time, I want to be surrounded by people who are also doing the same work and who are also on the grounds, like what I'm saying, let's meet up. So I've had so many friends over the summer. We took packages to the protest and we went to the protest together and this crowdfunding. I'm so thankful for the community health and social solidarity that's been shown. And just, we have so much work to do. We haven't even begun to really touch it, so.
We could go on and on, but we can't. I mean, because this is what people call rich is great radio, is great this, and we got about 6 minutes before we gotta wrap up the show. And Lady Estelle has already told me she's not gonna do a consider this, but she does. Oh, you gave me that look. I wasn't supposed to say that. Okay.
You know, Dr. Marshall, you know how you do. I know how you do.
She does want me to ask each of you, what message would you give? What message would you give encouraging young people about getting out and voting? What message? Because we got a lot of, we got people watching now. We got people who will watch all the podcasts. A copy of this will go to KMEL and KMEL will get it out to there. So a lot of people got to probably see this show soon. If they, so what message would each of you give to young people encouraging them to get out and vote? So CJ, start with you.
The message I would give, I believe, is what do you want to see some change happening in these next few years, or do you want to see things that will end up getting worse than what it is now? Because I feel like if Trump back in office, I just have a feeling that it's not going to be very good for us. And it's kind of scary. Like, I feel like people should be kind of nervous about what could happen and what's going on, because
he's an idiot.
It's a very nerve-wracking thing. Like, what does the next 4 years lie? Like, what's ahead for us if he's back in office? And you have to think about that, and I want everyone to go vote. And you also got to put into perspective, don't just vote for the president. You have to vote for the props. You need to vote. You can't forget every 2 years that you got to vote in Congress. You can't forget the small groups of people like the mayor, the councilman. You can't forget about those people. Don't forget about governors. Everyone should just go out and vote and try to educate yourself on certain policies that people are putting out, who to vote for when it comes to councilmen and the mayor. Like, if you want to see change, look outside of the box just of what they try to teach us, as if the president or the mayor are kind of like on this pedestal as if they're like kings. You have to also think about the people that are the other people, like Congress and councilmen. That's my message to everyone. Please go vote. Just vote. We really need it, unless, because we don't know what the next 4 years will lie ahead of us. We just don't know.
Okay. Thank you, CJ.
So CJ just took up 4 to 6 minutes. So you only, each of you no, I'm kidding. Ron, what would you say to young people?
To keep it short and simple, I would just say, regardless of what, the oppressors may say to us, is that our voices matter and our votes do matter, and that we really need to show up as a community and go out and vote if we want to see change happen in our country and in our communities.
Kaylin, you just got big props from your mom. I saw that. That's cool. That's hella cool, right? She said, look at my baby girl. I know what she said. Okay. What would you say to young people?
To young people, I would say that we have power. We're not really told that we do, but know that you have power and that your vote matters. And if it didn't matter, they wouldn't be working so hard to suppress it. So get out there and vote.
Shy?
Oh gosh, Kaylin took some of my words I was gonna use, but great minds think alike. Good. If I had to tell our youth something, it would kind of be more along the lines of, you are who you are. You are here for a purpose. No one can ever take your purpose off this earth, and no one ever will, because you matter and your life matters.
Michael?
I would just say break the curse, break the generational curse of not voting. We know that they've been banking on our silence, so change their mind, surprise them, and vote.
You've all been just amazing. I know Mrs. Hills got something to say, but let me just say this. As an alum, I couldn't be more proud of you. Having, my activism career, everything I do today, working with young people I've done, began at USF. So I went and got my hat just for the night, right? This at University of San Francisco. My fellow students and I founded the BSU long time ago. Then, and they elected me the first president of the BSU, and everything. Let me just put it like this: seeing you is what we dreamed of seeing. What we dreamed of seeing. I remember I got my, then founded the BSU. I wanted to make USF my home, because when I got there from LA, having come from an all-white Jesuit high school, I thought there were some more Black people at the school, but found out the only Black people there were the basketball players and me. So I set out right then and there to make USF my home, recruiting Black students to the school, getting Black professors. Hell, I wanted some fried chicken and greens in the cafeteria. I wanted the whole bit. And seeing base and all of you come to the school, I know the percentage of Black students has increased. And obviously with that comes challenges, because then you really want to make the place your home, because you're all there together. And so you bump up against things. But seeing you young activists, it's just, I know Adrian Riley was watching, and, having had the privilege of having the learn living, I always say that wrong, community named the Marshall Riley community is just a wonderful thing. So I would just say this to you. Everything you said is right on point as far as I'm concerned. I always said that this is a marathon relay race for freedom, justice, and equality. Mike Hill has heard me say that, a marathon relay race. And if you know what a marathon is, it's a long race. And so our people have been running this race since they hit the shores. And a lot of we run hard, we run our legs hard. And the only thing that will stop is when we turn and hand the baton that there's nobody to hand it off to. You have validated, and I knew it anyway, that the baton is being handed off. And not that I'm not in the race. See, one thing about people who've done the work and come from the generation that I've come from is that when you work hard, you ain't about to give nothing up. So I'm always ready to fight. It's like when you earn something, you ain't about to give it up. My concern is that is the next generation going to be ready? And just wonderful hearing you. I'm ready. We're doing it. We're fighting. But remember, it is a marathon race and there's a relay race. And so you got to keep moving. You got to keep fighting without the guarantee of success. But success won't come unless you're in the race. So just thank you. Thank you, Dr. Harrison, for giving the opportunity for you to be here. It's just wonderful, wonderful to see. And Leah Sale, I know you want to say something.
Each of you are a brilliant example of the hope and dreams of our ancestors. Thank you for all that you're doing. And I celebrate what you've done and all that you're going to be. Blessings to you and keep up the amazing work. You are the future and we are looking to you.
So maybe after the election, we'll get back together and we'll toast a glass of water because that's all we can do. We can do on Zoom radio. But thank all of you. Thank all of you for being here. I know it's on Zoom, couldn't do it any other way, so I hope it drive you crazy. But, we love you. Good luck. And I will use a saying from, I could use a lot of sayings, but I will use one from my favorite hip hop group. Chuck D and Public Enemy, let's keep on fighting the power. That's the way I feel. So thank you very much. Good night and see everybody. We'll see you soon. And thank you very much.
Keep using your voice. Keep using your voice. Thank you. Blessings.
Okay, good night.